Welcome back, everyone. Happy to be here for Talk Openly. My name is Jack, and I am accompanied here by my excellent friend Daniel. Hello, Daniel.
Howdy, buddy. How you doing?
I'm okay. Yeah, surviving.
You look like you're
Yeah.
surviving all right. You look
Oh,
good.
thanks. It's funny. This chair definitely makes me like look chill. Where I'm like, I got my arms up. I'm kind of kicked back.
Nah, you know what you need? You need a tweed jacket and one of those old pipes.
I'd like that. I think
Yeah.
that's kind of my vibe.
Yeah. Maybe in the wintertime though. It's
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
yeah, for
It's
sure.
warming up.
It
Okay, we're
is. It's
gonna.
getting hot here in Sacramento.
Oh, I bet.
It's
What's
like
it? What's
85
it
degrees
topping?
today it was.
Jeez Louise. Yeah, yeah. I think our high today was 60, and it felt
Okay.
hot. It really
Yeah,
did. It felt
yeah,
warm.
yeah.
Yeah.
I could roll with that, but it's all right. Spring is in the air.
Yes, for sure.
Literally, it's hammering me, Jack.
It is literally in the air.
I have lived in Sacramento or the Sacramento Valley for much of my life. And I've had occasionally a little itchy eyes, a little runny nose or something. It is just knocking me down,
Yeah.
like it's gnarly. And I swear it's those Bradford pear trees. I know it's
Yep,
them.
for sure.
They're,
Yeah.
I don't like those things. There's one in my backyard. I see them blooming everywhere and they're gorgeous.
Yeah.
Beautiful. I love those trees, like the way they look, you know. But
Yeah.
dude, I think whatever they're doing to me, they stink up the air and they make
Yeah, they do.
make me feel like crap. Anyway, I'm blaming them
Yeah.
largely. So
I think
if
that's fair.
yeah, if you could probably hear it in my voice and whatever, I might be a little out of it tonight, but I'm
Yeah.
here and I'm happy to be here.
That's everyone in my household too. And honestly, even just talking about it, my eyes are itching. So I'm
I'm
probably
sorry.
gonna
I should
be
not
doing
have
this
said
every once in a
Bradford
while.
pear. That's probably what happened. Your body has this like
Whew.
conditioned response to just the word, that the
Yeah,
image of
yeah,
it, the
right.
thought of it.
Right. Zyrtec, it's good stuff.
Hey, you know what? Okay, so I've never taken any of that, and then none of them, right?
Yeah,
And so then my partner was like, "Yeah, hey, Zyrtec, we got something because everybody here in the house has allergies.
yeah.
Go ahead and try it. Let's see if that's really what's going on." And I took one of the Zyrtec, and I was like, "Yeah, I feel quite a bit better. Like that's good. Like it's not the itchy and the whatever. All this stuff's kind of it's lessened, but
Lessened.
it." Is not gone and it only appears to work for several hours, but you can only take one every 24 hours.
I was told by an allergist that you can actually take several a
Woo.
day.
Okay.
Yeah. They just
Well,
they're being conservative, but yeah.
I might
I'm
have
sure.
to do that because it's eating me up.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So,
Well,
anyway,
I'm guessing that this is actually a pretty helpful conversation for our listeners, but we are going to talk Dharma tonight too. Um,
promise.
and the second half of our show tonight, we're going to be talking about, well, the title of our show is The Self in Five Pieces, which is kind of this elegant way of talking about the five skandhas, the five aggregates.
The
And
five heaps.
yeah, the five heaps. I like that one. Um, that word. But it's interesting, I've been practicing Buddhism and kind of like reading classical texts since like 2019, 2018, 2019. And I've never really delved into the five aggregates. Isn't that funny?
Yeah.
Yeah. Like
Yeah.
I've read, I've read sutras or, text with those terms. And I'm kind
Yeah.
of like, I get a general sense of what that is. But like I
Yeah.
haven't
I mean, how
actually,
many times
yeah,
have you recited the Heart Sutra?
exactly. Right.
Form is empty, emptiness is form.
And this is not other than form. Yeah. Um, so it's gonna be good. I appreciate that you brought this topic up because I need to learn more about it.
Well, I was just following up on our conversation with Matthew last week about embodiment, right? And one
Sure.
of the very first mindfulness practices recommended by the Buddha was mindfulness of the form, the body, right? So
Perfect.
it kind of leads
Yeah.
right into this.
So we started with the body. Matthew got us going.
Yeah, he did.
Yeah, we're gonna keep it up, keep it rolling.
Let's do it.
Well, aside from allergies, how are things? How's your training and all of that?
Oh yeah, training's going good. I had my darshan with Lama last week, and just good stuff. Always come out of there feeling uplifted and invigorated. So that was really nice. I had a talk on Sunday
Yes, I wanted to hear about it.
but yeah, about the five opponent powers. That went really well. Thanks for all the prep work.
Yeah.
Lama surprised me by showing up for the talk.
Oh my gosh. He
Yeah, yeah.
would.
Yeah, so I arrived a little bit, I got there a little early because I wanted to do the group meditation. And I was like, and so before the group meditation, I was hanging out in the kitchen making some tea, and then I see Lama walk in, and I was like, what? This is very highly unusual. And he pokes his head in, he's like, "Yeah, I just had a little time, so I thought I'd stop in, see what you guys are doing." And I was like, oh my God, what is happening here? So then we go in and he's leading the meditation and on point. Oh my God, everything he was talking about with the meditation part of it, like it hit hard, it hit home. And
Yeah.
then it's like he's like, yeah, so sometimes, some teachers will show up, to their students' homes unannounced.
You're right.
And he said, I'm not doing that, but it's okay for me to drop in on a talk every now and then. And
Yeah.
so that was pretty cool. He was right behind me the whole time. And
Mhm.
initially when I first saw him, I was a little kind of like it just threw me off a little bit because I wasn't
Yeah.
expecting it. But I realized what a tremendous support it was having him there, and I'm super
Mm.
grateful he was there. One of the funny parts about it was that I had a lot of prep work, a lot of information to share, and I wasn't really thinking about the time. No, I was just going
Yeah.
on and on, and I was only through three of the opponent powers.
Uh-huh.
And he was like, and then all of a sudden I hear him go, Daniel, you might wanna you might wanna, if you're gonna get through this in a timely manner and still have room for some questions and answers, you might want to move on. So
Yeah.
I had to wrap it up real quick, but
Yeah.
good discussion, and I think it was a good talk. I don't know. It's hard to tell.
Yeah.
It was really pleasant.
Awesome.
It was super pleasant having him there, and
Yeah.
yeah, and just all of it's kind of coincides with, more regular sort of, I wouldn't call it like super intense training, just regular practice and training. Just
Yeah.
keeps going, so it's all good stuff.
Great. I love to hear that. Yeah, I'm really looking forward to watching your talk when it comes out on YouTube. I just yeah, it's such a great helpful topic. And also to know that Lama was there, like that's um it's just very sweet. He actually was there for
Hmm.
my first talk ever.
Yeah.
And I was so nervous, so nervous. Like I
Yeah.
literally had the feeling that I was like going to my death. Maybe
Uh,
not like maybe not that bad, but I did have this feeling of like, okay, this is final. Like this is happening.
yeah. Yeah. Well, I had a
Um,
whole hour. I didn't wasn't surprised by it because I had a whole hour of realizing and getting to sit with it. And I was
yeah,
like, and I realized I was like, no, I'm gonna appreciate this. This is good
yeah,
stuff, right? There's
yeah,
nothing, he's never done anything that as far as it relates to me, I've never had him do anything that was anything other than supportive.
yes,
And so
yeah,
I could rely on that. I was like, he's not here to tear me down. He's not here to make
yeah,
it hard for me.
right,
It's all supportive. It was kind of
yeah.
interesting though. The one part that I took from, he was like, this afterward, he did say he had some words about uh Lama Zopa and Venerable Robina and Lama Yeshe, where he was like, well, Dan, basically like Daniel did a good job of describing the Hinayana path of using the four opponent powers. This is
Ah,
self-liberation. But then he was like, there's more to it than that. And Vajrasattva practice, because I wasn't talking about Vajrasattva practice in particular. And
mm,
he was like, and that practice it's bigger and heavier. It's not just this little stuff, right?
yeah,
And
yeah, yeah,
so he alluded to the fact that that you can go a lot deeper with purification practice than whatever I've touched on. So
yeah.
That was pretty cool. And while I've got the floor, I gotta tell you, I'm so
Yeah,
excited. Okay, so Llama's birthday is coming up, right?
right.
And I was scratching my head. I was like, what am I gonna do? I don't want to do the same thing as I have before, but I'm like a one-trick pony, like
Mm,
I only like know gadgets and technology and computers and stuff like that. So
yeah.
I was like, what can I do? What can I do? Finally, I was like, I don't know if you've heard of it, but there's this new way of creating software called vibe coding. I don't know if you heard.
Hmm. I
Vibe
don't.
vibe coding means that somebody who doesn't actually know what they're doing, somebody like me, just uses an AI tool and talks to it, works with it to create what they want. So don't tell anybody, okay? This is our little secret.
Okay. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
All right. So I want it to be a surprise for Llama. So if you're watching right now, mum's the word, okay? But I'm creating a mobile app for Lions Roar Dharma Center, right? Yeah.
Awesome.
So I already have a meditation timer on there. I have a mala counter. I've got the events, the upcoming events in there. Uh,
Yeah.
Push notifications, where you can send messages, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then like content, so we can send messages both to like the admin people can send messages to each other, and then we can send messages for the membership and then for the general public. And anyway, I'm
Nice.
so excited about this. Like I'm having a lot of fun with it. Like,
That's awesome,
yeah,
Daniel. That's
I'm
so
really
great.
I'm really hoping that it works.
Yeah.
But I got a little bit of time. His birthday, I think we'll celebrate it at the end of June.
Yeah. Fantastic. That's really great to hear. Thanks
Yeah.
for doing that.
Hey, if you have any feature requests, let me know, okay? If you have
Okay.
any ideas where you're like, this would be really cool, like put the random Lojong slogan generator in
I
there.
mean, if you could, that seems like it'd be a feat, but maybe that'd be
Maybe,
fantastic.
maybe, yeah.
I would absolutely. It would make it easier for me to practice Lojong if I had it on my phone, right?
Right?
Yeah, that would be good.
All right, we'll see.
Okay,
All
sweet.
right,
Good
that's
for
all I
you.
got.
I love
That's
it.
it. What about you?
I'm doing well. Yeah, it's similar to you. I've had terrible allergies the last week, to the point where I've been like somewhat fatigued. And so I've a little bit, I've gotten off of my schedule of like doing my shamatha in the morning. I'll still do prayers and kind of get my day going. But shamatha I'm doing later on in the day or at night, which I noticed that like for me, my mind is a lot more clear later on in the day, which I don't know if like it's better for me to do shamatha later in the day or if I should just keep trying to do it in the morning when my mind is like really cloudy even after doing like prayers and prostrations and even like salung. Like oftentimes in the morning I'm just like I'm not focused. And so I think it's maybe just different experiences, right?
Yeah, we're not in
Yeah.
part. Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. I've been having the same sort of thing, identical,
Oh
where
yeah.
like very dreamy, kind of cloudy, whatever. No matter what I do, and no matter what the prep work looks like. And I
Hmm.
realized I was like, yeah, that's what it looks like now. That's okay.
Yeah.
Like sit down and do your practice. Like just keep
Yeah, just
doing
got
it.
to do it.
Just yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, just do it for sure. Yeah, and so I think I'll talk with Llama about like, is it like, is it cool for me to just do shamatha at night? Um, and then otherwise, I'll keep doing it in the morning too, and just try and have that mindset of like, well, this is what it is, what's the experience of being dreamy and
Yeah.
and unfocused
This
and
is Jack's
cloudy?
mind on dreams. This is Jack's mind off dreams.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. Yeah, because it's all a dream state anyways, right?
Right. Good
Um,
practice for ordinary life.
yeah, yeah. And that reminds me, so I've been tracking my dreams for the last like 4 months or so, trying to do kind
Ooh.
of like a dream yoga practice.
Yeah.
And it's been really interesting to see because otherwise they're lost, right? They're completely lost to me. And I try and catch them. I try and get myself to like, when I wake up in the middle of the night and I have a dream lingering, to write it down right then because I'm not going to remember it clearly later. And what I found is that it's like there's this whole world happening in my subconscious that is really detailed and has kind of like similar features. Like I return to kind of this place, and it's not so much how it looks, though sometimes it does, but there's a feeling. Like, do you know what I mean? Like there's a feelings that we have in dreams where it's like, okay, there's this familiar sense.
Mm.
And people recur in my dreams. Geshe Sewang showed up in a dream recently. That was just so pleasant and
That's
wonderful.
auspicious.
It was funny. He sent a letter in the mail, and it was actually addressed to our friend Connor, but I received it. And I guess I felt it was okay to read the letter because I was reading it as I realized that it was for Connor. But very pleasant. So I really recommend, like, even if not necessarily for dream yoga, but just to kind of start tracking what's happening um, in your dreams is really interesting. And I think I've just learned a little bit more about myself. It's been really fun.
Oh, I dig it. I dig it. You know, I don't
Yeah.
I should. I have a little notepad. I should just put it on my bedside table and
Yeah.
have it
Yeah.
there because it is they I lose them so fast.
Oh, yeah. It's so fast. Yeah. And you think you're going to remember, but every time it slips.
One of my recurring themes for the last couple of years is very personal, high level meetings with the world's top political leaders.
Really?
Yeah, like I've hung out and had discussions with Putin and Elon
Uh-huh.
Musk, none with Donald Trump,
Uh-huh.
but I've Putin and I have hung out a lot together.
That's so interesting.
Yeah.
What do you make of it?
Well, my girlfriend tells me, she says, because I've relayed these dreams to her, and she's like, you're really on it. Like, you really think that you're like, if you just talk to them, they'll see things and then it'll all be better. Like, that seems to be it. Like, I'm like trying to not so much like convince them to change their ways or anything, but just sort of like, have you thought about it this way?
Uh-huh. Uh-huh. Well, in some like in I think it's like Jungian psychology in dream work, typically other people in your dreams are some kind of reflection of yourself. So
Mm.
like like a part of you that has kind of been maybe rejected or is not always very present in your everyday life. And so yeah, it's kind of I'm wondering if maybe there's a little bit of a
Yeah, my
Putin in
inner
there that
authoritarian leader.
yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah. But I'm gonna if I can remember to journal it, that's the kind of part of it too, right? You have to remember to do
Yeah.
it, but I'll set some intention around that. I've been having
Yeah.
some wacky dreams. It'd be great to journal it.
Well, and it's also it can be really fun and
Yeah.
surprising to read them the next morning. And also your brain when you're half asleep is really funny. Like it's
Right.
it's like really funny. Like I woke up one morning and looked over my dreams, and there was one where I had written down living in a house full of other femmes, um, organized around our love of a female celebrity, pros and cons to this lifestyle. and
Ah,
I remember feeling like I have to write this down, that there are pros and cons to this. And like it was really serious, like in the middle of the night. But then like when I woke up, it was just hilarious. So
right.
yeah,
Oh, it feels very, very real and very serious.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
big
yeah, no
time.
doubt.
Yeah.
Well, just like all of this, it feels so real and so serious.
Right. I know. Yeah, that's the thing. Gotta wake up to the dream.
How do we do that?
I know.
Yeah.
I guess we gotta do some mind training, right?
We could be mindful of the skandhas. That might be an entry point.
That's true. I think that's gonna be, yeah, a big part of our conversation.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, you want to do some lojong?
Heck yeah, let's do some Lojong. I
Nice.
one thing help me to remember, last week somebody was chatting on YouTube. They'd sent a message in asking a question and I
Oh,
wasn't paying
cool.
attention to it. So I should be at least before the show's over, we should take a look at it, okay?
Very nice.
All right.
I
So,
like questions.
yeah, it's nice to have a live audience too.
Hmm.
Okay.
Pulling up the random Lojong slogan generator
Yeah,
that
can you
mine
see it?
shows. Yep, I can see it now.
All right, let's see what comes up.
Hmm? All right. Hey, number 50. Don't depend on external conditions. I don't know if we've had this one yet. So, Choyam Trungpa says, although your external circumstances may vary, your practice should not be dependent on that. Whether you are sick or well, rich or poor, have a good reputation or bad reputation, you should practice Lojong. It is very simple. If your situation is right, breathe that out. If your situation is wrong, breathe that in.
Interesting. I
Hmm.
would have thought that it would be the other way around.
Yeah, yeah,
If the
yeah.
situation is right, breathe it in. No, I guess if it's right, I can kind of see it. The positive, it's like Tonglen, right? The positives are on the out breath and the negatives on the in breath.
Yeah, yeah, right, right. Okay, that's interesting. I'm glad that you brought that up. Um, and I guess this is really very relevant for me and what I shared about my training right now is that like I did kind of get thrown off by feeling like full of allergies and tired. And so, I think there's like ways that we can be compassionate and nurturing to ourselves when we're not feeling well, but still disciplined, um, putting effort into our practice, um, not going to extremes, right?
Yeah,
Not going to extremes. Yeah,
if you want to get to know the ocean of the mind, you can't only watch it on calm days, right?
it's
Like
true.
right? Like you want to know it all. You want to know when it's stormy. You want to know when it's subdued. You want to know when it's sick. Well, whatever's going on. Like we want to be familiar with it and see what it's like.
Yeah.
It makes me think about. I remember Lama talking about how one of the monasteries he was at, they would sometimes like come and like wake him up in the middle of the night, like have him go to bed late, wake him up in the middle of the night, and then they would like give him some alcohol to drink,
Yeah.
and then they'd sit and they'd have to wait, and the teacher wouldn't show up, and and like all kind like they were creating these like sort of troubled conditions. They were stirring the waves, so to speak, right?
Yeah.
And then like to me, I'm like, yeah, that makes sense, right? Like we don't need to do that so much because we don't live a monastic life. We've got all kinds of stuff disturbing our minds on a regular basis. But I think that's kind of like I can't help but think about that because our life situation is such that a lot of times things aren't going the way we want them to be, and we feel tired and and I've definitely been like that before where I'm like, man, I just, I'm too tired, I'm too stressed, I'm too whatever, and not right now. I'm just gonna go to bed.
Hmm.
And so and not giving into that and being willing. Sometimes what I do then is I strike a balance and I just say, that's all right. Like, even if you regularly are committing to, let's just say I'm trying to do 30 minutes a day, right? And I have been doing that, and then I get sick and I'm tired and I'm stressed and whatever. Instead of giving up 100%,
Hmm.
I'll just be like, how about this? No timer, no nothing. Just sit
Hmm.
down. And when you're done sitting, be done with it, right? And so
Yeah.
I still get to sit. And sometimes those are like some of the most healing sits.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I've had that same experience. And uh, for me, a lot of times when I'm in like kind of intense emotional stress, I'll feel like, man, I'm not going to be able to concentrate. I've got all this stuff on my mind, and I'm just going to be like, grinding my gears on it. But then I found that those are sometimes the most energetic and present practices.
Yeah.
There's some juice behind it.
Think about
Um,
it. there's some juice, and you're getting to see some of the things that you normally don't see when conditions are optimal.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's you know, it allow like the mindfulness of feeling, which we're going to talk about feeling tonight as one of the skandhas. That's a really great training. So like what does this feeling actually feel like? And turns out it's not solid, it's not permanent. And it's really just like it's just a state of mind. It doesn't stay. So it's really a great practice.
Hell yeah.
We're losing, like I feel like it's we're losing out on such an opportunity um when we don't just sit in those moments.
Dude, the more disturbed you are or whatever, the better it is.
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
I don't mean more pleasant it is.
Right, for sure. Yeah, yeah. No, you gotta go there. Okay, this is a wonderful statue we're seeing here.
Yeah, little figure here of Bodhisattva Vajra Raksha.
Cool.
Never heard of Vajra Raksha, have you?
Neither have I.
I
Yeah,
bet if we were Tibetan, we would have heard of them.
yeah, I'm sure. Well, we are working on being bodhisattvas in training.
Yeah.
Uh, so hopefully someday we'll look that cool.
Yeah, I think, yeah, for sure. I want to look that cool.
Yeah, I know, right? Well, Daniel,
Let's do it.
so we're here.
The self
Yeah.
in 5 pieces.
Yeah, we're talking about the self in five pieces, the five aggregates. And you mentioned that we talked with Matthew last week. We were talking a lot about embodiment, what it means to pay attention to the body and feel the body, and having mindfulness of the body. And so that it sounds like that cued you to say, okay, let's look a little bit more into not just the body, but like the other features of a self or the self that we
Hmm.
perceive, right?
Yeah.
Um, and so these are the skandhas, the aggregates, or as you said earlier, the five heaps. Um, and I again, I don't know a ton about them, but I know that the Buddha um, did a lot of teaching on the aggregates and the emptiness of the aggregates, and how it's important to really look into each one of these to try and find, is there any kind of like solid thing that we can actually find within each of the aggregates that is real, that is unchanging, that is permanent. Um, and, eventually with that kind of investigation, we're not going to find anything.
Just
um,
emptiness.
just emptiness. And so, and not that there's nothing there, right? But that it's not, yeah, it's not quite how we usually think of it.
Right.
Um, so yeah, I'd love to just jump right in. What do you think?
I think we should do it. I think we should
Yeah,
start with, should we iterate that? Like, should we first go over and say what they are and then we can go?
sure.
All
Sounds
right.
great.
So there's 5 of them, right? Form, feeling, perception, mental formations, and consciousness. That's it. And we'll start with form.
Yeah. So form, that seems like kind of the maybe the easiest one or the one that I feel most kind of aware of. And that's, the kind of
Mm.
physical form, like material form of our bodies. And so everything that makes up a body, and not just I think it's important to remember that the body is not just like a whole piece, right? It's like um we are made up of many parts.
Yeah, the
Um,
microorganisms in my gut definitely don't think
oh
that
my
the,
God,
yeah.
there's so many. Yeah, it's incredible. I heard this amazing fact the other day that I've been telling everyone because I think it's so brilliant.
Yeah.
And it's been verified by multiple medical journals that the human body, one human body, has 60,000 miles of blood vessels, and when placed end to end, that is not one, but two circumferences of the entire Earth.
That's a lot.
That's a lot. And it blows my mind. And I think if we all knew that, we would stop killing each other because we're amazing.
Yeah, that's wild to think about.
I know. I know. I totally love it.
60,000 miles.
I know. Like in here.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
it's a whole
Yeah, it doesn't make
universe
sense.
right here. Actually,
So,
speaking of universes, one of the things that I was listening. A couple of things about the form part of it. So we are used to in the Heart Sutra saying form is emptiness, emptiness is not other than form, right?
mm,
In the Heart Sutra that Thich Nhat Hanh offered up, it's this body, right? So this body is, is emptiness, and this emptiness is not other than this body. So I thought that part was really interesting because to me, form always represented all matter, actually, all bodies,
right,
not just
right,
our body, but the body of the earth and the body of the clouds and the body, and I think that that's still true. But it's when we're talking about in our practice, why are we concerned with this? Why are we interested in this? It's because this thing that we're so believing in, like when people say like, who are you? Well, I'm this. This is me. It's this thing right
right.
here, this meat
Like
suit
I look
walking
like
around.
this. This is
Yeah.
my face.
Yeah.
You know, it's like
I'm in here looking out at you in my body, right? It's like
right.
some kind of a mech thing, you know? And so
Totally.
I think it's interesting that it's both. It's all sort of matter, if you will, right? But that it's this when we're talking about it here in practice, we're talking about our bodies. But one of the things
Yeah.
that I thought I was listening to Thich Nhat Hanh talk about this, and he said something so beautiful when he was talking about the five skandhas. And he says, this is your kingdom. The
Hmm.
five skandhas are your kingdom. And you are looking everywhere outside of your kingdom for something outside of your kingdom. Come home to your kingdom. And I was
Ooh.
like, whoa, I got shivers. I was
Mm.
like, oh my God, Thich Nhat Hanh. I just love that. I love him. Come
That's
to your kingdom.
awesome.
These five, these are like this is like the tower.
Ooh.
Yeah.
It makes me feel like kind of blissful.
Right? But
There's
it's
a little
kind of
bit
like
of
what you just
bliss.
said. You have a whole world inside of your body.
Yeah. No,
Right.
it's amazing. And
Right.
yeah, and so like, and those 60,000 miles of blood vessels, I have no control over that. How is that me? Like, when I really think of it, like I really, so identify with this body. I spend a lot of time taking care of this body, right? In some ways, we have to. We're so close to death, right? Our bodies are just, so close to dying at all times. So we have to eat. We got to be, hopefully under a roof. And we got to drink water and ideally get a little, some exercise. That's a lot of upkeep, right? That's like a lot we've got to do
Yeah.
to keep this body going. Um, and so I really strongly, identify with those actions of body that I'm like, taking care of. And also, how people see my body, right? That I really
Oh
strongly
yeah.
identify with
Oh
that,
yeah.
and maintaining a kind of appearance of my body. So very much, very strongly attached, and feel that myself is within my body. But there's nothing here that I can really identify. Like when I look at it, right? There's
Yeah.
okay, there's the skin, right? There's muscle, eyeballs, like where's me?
Right.
Like which of that is me, like the essence of me.
Right. If you lost your pinky, would you still be you?
Right, exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or if your brain, maybe this is getting into like the consciousness part, but if your physical brain was put into another person's body, like where would you be?
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
doesn't make any sense.
It sure wouldn't.
Thank
I like the way you think, Jack.
you.
We're so strongly attached with these bodies for all the reasons that you already mentioned, like the way that we feel in them, the way that other people react and perceive them. They're very, very important, these bodies, but they aren't the way that we think they are. That's all, you know?
Yeah.
And I do love the, like the mindfulness practices, like the kind of stuff that Matthew was talking about coming into our bodies and to sort of um, to bring them onto the path, so to speak. They're already here, but
Yeah.
to work with them in a mindful way. But I was thinking about it. I don't know which teacher I heard say this, but I really liked actually this other contemplation of the body that loosened up the sense of it being so solid. And it wasn't any kind of a body scan or anything. It was thinking about the transactional nature of the body. And they were like
Mm.
how we're always in this sort of exchange with the environment. The body is
Yes.
always it's always taking things in, air, food, water, and then it's always expelling things back out, and that it's constantly moving. It's a
Yeah.
process, a dynamic process that's happening. So instead of saying that this is a body, like that makes it solid and it's a thing. No, 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 no. This is a bodying. There is bodying happening,
Yeah, yeah,
right?
yeah. There is
Yeah.
bodying happening.
Right.
Yeah. And it reminds me, Lana said a few times, like, we are the environment. And that is like a very literal way, we are
Yes.
the environment. Like we do not exist without everything around us.
Yeah.
And we are constantly giving back to everything around us too.
Yeah.
It's an exchange, like you said, relationship.
Yeah. Yeah. So there's the form of this body, and then there's a form of all those bodies.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, and the Dalai Lama, encourages to start with ourselves, and then we can move on to everything outside of us.
Yeah.
Yeah, the form
Yeah.
outside of us. Um, Great. What do you think? Have we tackled form?
I think so. What do you think about
Right.
feeling?
Feeling. Is that Vidana? Vidanya is the Sanskrit.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
No idea.
Yeah. Um, so feeling, and the way that I kind of conceived this originally as, emotions, which, I think that's part of it. But then there's this flavor and kind of, thinking of it from a more like a Dharma perspective rather than a psychology perspective, is that, we label certain emotions or experiences as either pleasurable, um, unpleasant, or neutral. Um, is that
Yeah,
kind of how you perceive it too?
not quite. I mean,
Okay.
I think yes, about the pleasure, pain, and neutral aspect of it, but I think the emotional component comes later. The way that I understood this is that there's actually, so if you think about it sort of in order, right? Like
Mm.
that before you even develop an emotion of something, before you even are really aware, there's actually already before you develop any kind of perception or mental formation about it, there's already a feeling of this kind of like avoid or move
Yeah,
towards or ignore. And
yeah,
that's happening like all the time, constantly, right? And it's not, and it's so it's like in the background. We're not even thinking about it, but you'll notice if depending on, for example, objects of attraction, right? What's really funny is if you really start paying attention to this, you'll notice that, whatever, you might break your neck looking at somebody, right? And
mm-hmm.
you did not actually know whether they were, what they were or who they were or any of that, but there was something that instantly you were like, I like that, or I don't like that, or just
Yeah,
most of the time ignoring. It doesn't matter. It
yeah,
doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. But there are some things that grab your attention
yeah.
real quick, and that's that positive, negative, neutral thing.
So it sounds like it's like it's like impulsive,
Yeah.
It's kind of, yeah, knee-jerk reaction.
It's
And
like it's like precognition, I would say.
right, right.
I think it's closer to what like the reactive stuff that, animals have, right? Like,
Sure.
where it's just their nature, right? Like they don't have to sit and think about
Yeah.
anything. It just happens.
Well, and yeah, I mean, we are animals. And
Right,
so it
good
makes
point.
sense, yeah, that we respond to
A,
things
a,
like that.
a fast
And
moving object coming right at your eyes, right? You don't have any emotional feelings about it. You don't even know what it is, but you're gonna
right,
you're gonna know to avoid.
right, right.
I don't
Yeah,
like fast moving
exactly.
objects coming at my eyes.
Yeah. Well, and I listened to someone talking about this, the feeling as also being very much conditioned by our surroundings, by
Totally.
our family culture, our, culture in general. And so those things can also become somewhat impulsive, right? Like when you think of kind of in like bias, different kinds of bias that we might have against certain peoples or foods or whatever it is. We can also have, positive bias where we see certain people or foods or whatever it is as pleasurable. So
Correct. Well,
that is, yeah, also part of it.
we are talking about conditioned phenomena, right? And so all of these heaps are conditioned. All of these aggregates are conditioned. So
Mm,
the way that we think of them, the way we experience them, all of that, everything from the form down through consciousness, all of it's conditioned. So that's exactly what you're talking about, right? The feeling. Like,
mm,
yeah, like
yeah,
that's been conditioned as well.
yeah, yeah.
It's deeply ingrained. It may have come, it may be like genetically programmed into you that maybe that's how I got conditioned, but that which has been conditioned can be unconditioned.
Yeah. Well, and yeah, why do you think we associate so strongly with those just kind of like impulse things? Like
Because they saved our
how
ass, Jack. I think
they
that
say, yeah,
they're
they've saved
super
our ass. Yeah,
valuable, man.
for
I'm
sure.
glad. I mean, thank God for
I'm
feeling.
glad they're there. Yeah,
Yeah,
for
yeah. I'm
sure.
not opposed to feeling. I think the problem is just the way that we think of them as so real and how we identify with them, right?
Well, and it's just interesting that in this kind of meditation on the skandhas and that each of these skandhas we over identify with
Yeah.
as like, okay, that's the self, right? And so it's just curious that like I'm trying to think of times when I guess it's, as simple as like I like cats,
Yeah.
right? Like I am
Yeah.
a cat person, like I identify with that.
Right. If you have cat
Right?
allergies and cat phobia, then you're gonna have a different immediate feeling about whatever
Yeah.
the form of a cat. And notice too that what'll happen is it doesn't even have to be a cat. It's just the form, it's just the something of a cat, right? It could be a picture of a cat, it could be somebody
Yes.
talking about their cat,
Oh
you
yeah.
know, like so
Yeah.
we're not always just talking about like how we react to a particular physical object, but like there's something else there. We have this idea of catness.
Yeah. Yeah. And that informs who I am.
Cat, right. You're a cat
Yeah.
person.
But of course, like where did I get that from? My family had cats, right? So I was raised with cats. And other people weren't raised with cats.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Hey.
that's like, man, I see a monkey, I'm scared. I do not
Hell
want monkeys
yeah.
around me. I see people in other countries and they got like monkeys on their shoulders and they're like playing with monkeys and stuff. No way, man.
Yeah.
I'm a monkey phobist, right? I got
I
monkey phobia. Like I like them in videos and pictures and stuff, but I don't want them anywhere near me. No, thank you.
there's for me, there's a little bit of like an uncanny valley thing
Yeah,
there where
yeah,
it's like they look too close to humans, but not enough that it's just like creepy. And I'm
right.
like, I don't, yeah, I'm suspicious.
Well, I think we're naturally moving on to perception, aren't we?
Yeah.
Right? That when we talk
Uh-huh.
about like that uncanny valley or whatever, I think it did me. And notice too, like all of these things, the description is that they co-arise, right?
Mm.
So we oftentimes think so linearly, right? One and then the other, then the other, then the other. But they're actually
Yeah.
co-emergent, they're co-arising at the same time, all of this stuff,
Yeah.
right? So we don't
So
necessarily,
perception.
yeah.
Perception is yeah, say more about, so it's about labeling things,
Yeah, so it's
labeling
that
experiences.
it's when your mind it's so you have that knee jerk like I want it's you see something or you become aware of something and you have attraction or repulsion or whatever. This one is when you're like, "Oh, it's a cat.
It's a cat.
It's
Yeah.
my cat, James. It's a picture
Right.
of a cat. It's oh, kitty. It's a kitten."
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like that, once you've done that, that's perception, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
So
totally.
kind of, yeah, being able to define, use language, kind of, yeah, just conceptualize.
Conceptualize, and this is, I think, where the it seems to me like, I mean, the problems start all throughout the whole thing, but this is where it becomes really problematic. We are such language-bound creatures, and we think in language, and language has objects, right? And so we think of things as actual things, right? Like
And
cat,
separate. Yeah.
cat, right? Like if you point at something, one of these furry creatures, you point at it, everyone's gonna be like, "That's a cat," right? But
Hmm.
actually, it could be described in many, 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 many other ways, right? Like,
Sure.
and the boundaries of what is a cat and what isn't. Like, I think it gets a little easier when you talk about like trees and things like that, where it's all interwoven. You're like, where does the tree end and the fungus begin, right? And like,
Sure. Yeah.
what all is that, right? Like, we have created these concepts, but we made those up.
Yeah. Well, and I guess that's where kind of the self part comes in, right? Is that because we're able to discriminate based on language and create categories and separate objects, then we can say, I'm not that, like I'm this,
Right?
I'm not that.
Yeah,
And so, all of these other things like exist outside of
that's right.
me.
That's a thing. That's a cat. So I'm a thing too. And
Yeah.
I'm a human,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Right. But yeah, then as we do the meditation, thinking about it, like, where does that break down? Like, have you kind of done the meditation on perception and
Oh my God. Lots of
yeah,
them. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. It's one of my favorite. I think that's
Mm.
also in non, I mean, just in post meditation. It's I think about it all the time. Like, what is that, right? Sometimes, sometimes I'll look at something and I'll be like, well, there's like shadow and there's like highlight and there's curves and there's lines and there's geometric patterns. Like what you could spend days, you could probably spend eternity looking at a single blade of grass in this,
Yeah,
right? And looking at all the different ways in which it exists.
yeah.
Kind of like the whole thing with the Buddha and the fruit, right? Like he had like a tangerine or something, right? And he was talking
Mm-hmm.
about interconnectedness and how the entire universe was in this fruit. Like you could
Yeah,
do that with everything. It's kind of like Indra's net, that like each jewel is a reflection of the entire universe. Every phenomenon,
yeah.
every object contains the entire universe in it.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, why? When we really, I'm having like a little light bulb moment where it's like, why would I want to cling on to a self when there's uh such a better, nicer way of experiencing the world that we're part of it?
Totally, but I think, we don't want to throw the baby out with the
Of
bathwater.
course.
There is
Yeah.
nothing wrong with these things. It's convenient when we're talking about the cat, taking the cat to the vet. We do not want to have to be like, well, what I mean is,
Of course. Yeah. Yeah, yeah, no. But to have that kind of awareness that it's like, okay, and I'm not actually separate, right?
right,
I have my driver's license self and I'm moving through the world, taking my
sure,
cat places. I don't take my cat places actually. He gets very mad. But yeah, doing what we need to do, but not becoming fixated.
right. And the
Yeah.
delineation is totally arbitrary.
Yeah. Yeah, right. Hmm,
Hmm,
very cool.
yeah,
So mental formations, that's the fourth one, the fourth
right.
aggregate.
These are the
Um,
triangles.
and so it seems like this one's really about like conditioning.
Yeah.
And and you mentioned earlier that this is where emotions come in, like emotional reactions. Um, and would you say also kind of like our thoughts, our thinking, how we tend to
Ah, hell
think?
yeah. Mental
Yeah,
formations. Yes. Yeah,
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 yeah.
yeah, yeah.
So it's thoughts and emotions.
I
Um,
I see the cat's form, right? I'm attracted to the cat, and I know that that's James, my cat, and I love my kitty,
yeah, I
and
feel
oh,
love.
and and he means this. I remember getting him when he was this little, and you know what? All of that, the daydreaming about the cat, the thinking of all of
Yeah,
that, the mental formations. I just think it's interesting that to me, mental formations were all. I always thought it was thought. It was only thought.
sure,
And
yeah.
I thought similar, like what you were describing, I thought that emotions were under feeling. But it's interesting to me that emotions are considered mental formations as well, right? They're
Yeah.
separated out.
I think that's really cool because in like Western psychology, there is kind of a separation between thoughts and feelings. And there's ways that they kind of, like they combine them. Um, but it is kind of like these are separate camps. And I
Right.
like that in this conceptualization, it's like, no, they're related. They're connected. They're in the same heap
Yeah.
together.
Yeah.
Um, and it makes sense to me. Um, and then so like thinking about like how do I over identify, right? Like how is this how I, become attached to the self, like thinking, okay, my mental formations are myself. Um, I think I do tend to think that like my mind, like the things that I'm thinking, the way that I think, um, the feelings that I have about certain things, that's like, well, that's who I am. That's my personality, right? Those are the things that I care about. Is what's happening in my mental formations.
You're like
Um,
Descartes. You're like
yeah,
Descartes. I think, therefore I am.
yeah, yeah,
Cogito ergo
totally.
sum. Ah, that's who I am. I think
Yeah, for
that's
sure.
me.
I've got that Western conditioning in there,
Same,
right?
same. Very strongly identified with it, especially
Yeah.
back in the days when I thought I was smart, you know?
Oh, geez.
Like,
Yeah, same.
people were like, "Oh, you're a pretty smart guy." Whatever. It didn't matter. But I got so identified with my thinking, right?
Yeah,
Like, not the emotional component. I'm still working on that part.
sure.
But definitely with the thoughts. Like, oh yeah, I can create concepts and I can twist them around and do fancy things with them and create new concepts. Ah,
Right.
it's just
Yeah,
so
that
empty.
I am brilliant.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
Interesting. So that's really there's a lot of identity there.
for a
A
lot of
lot of
us, and
identity.
as you said, in Western culture, I think a lot of us are heavily identified with samskaras.
Yeah. So then what's a good way to kind of take this one apart?
I don't think I've ever heard anybody mention this at the temple, but I've heard it in other lineages, other traditions, other vehicles, um, that the labeling is where it's at. I think that you'll see this oftentimes with, I think it's within the Theravadan tradition that you see a
Hmm.
lot of labeling going on. And that's really where you're sitting there, and then, like you and I were talking about, like dreaming or whatever, that you just note, oh, dreaming, come back to the breath,
Hmm.
right? Oh,
Hmm.
planning, we'll come back. And so in all of these cases, there's a meditation like that. Just watch that particular component of of your self, right? Which are
Yeah.
one of these five heaps, and just watch that part of it. And so, and it's inevitable, right? Because you're gonna have some of these samskaras, they're gonna show up, right? If you
Hmm.
don't, please, let's talk.
Right, right.
But otherwise, if you're an ordinary mortal human being, you're likely going to have these things, and so just use them. And I think that's what I was getting at earlier when we were talking about it. Like, doesn't you're tired, you're sick, you're
Yeah,
grumpy, you're stressed, you're whatever. Okay, let's look at that.
yeah.
What's in
Yeah,
mind?
for
Look, what
sure.
kind of samskaras show up when you're tired versus when you're like super on top of it? To me, like it's a very clear difference between the two. One super fuzzy and dreamy, and the other is like crystal clear and very, organized and in a particular
Right.
direction.
Right. And yeah, I have a lot of feelings about those that are different, right?
Yeah,
Those experiences.
right, right. That's not me. I'm not like
Yeah,
that.
I'm not like that.
No,
Yeah.
somebody else. When Jack is sick, that's another person.
Right, exactly. Yeah. So then how is so consciousness is the final key. How is that one different from mental formations? I think it's easy to kind of get some of these all blended, right?
So to me, I kind of like to use the analogy or metaphor that I heard, I think, within Advaita Vedanta practice, but I've heard it in other places, which is the form, the feeling, the perception, the mental formations. They're all like, things playing. They're the actors or the light or the projector or whatever that's playing the movie, right? But then the awareness of all of that, the screen that it's playing on is the consciousness.
Interesting.
Something is aware that all of these things. Something's aware of all of these other heaps.
Yeah. So awareness in general.
Yeah.
Um,
Not as something separate from. It's again co-emergent, co-arising.
right. Okay. Yeah.
It's like a
I don't know
property.
if yeah, I still have a hard time kind of piecing it. So I really need to do this meditation.
Dude, I think what's really interesting is this because consciousness, you're like, all right, so when you start thinking about like reincarnation, right? And you're
Hmm.
like, the continuity of consciousness. Well, what are we talking about?
There you go.
Right?
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, what,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. And so it turns out that like it's a level of gradation, right? That this is my understanding, by the way. This is, I could be totally all wet here, but that we have ordinary everyday consciousness, which is what we're talking about here. I'm aware of drinking the tea. I'm aware of hearing your voice. I'm aware of all of these things, right? That's the ordinary consciousness that we're talking about. And then it gets a little bit more subtle. So there's like a subtle mind body, if you will. And that would be the thing that if it's not a thing, but the pattern or whatever you want to call it, that would continue on forward, that would
Hmm.
carry your karma forward into your other
Hmm.
future lives. And that then you go even further, the next gradation is a complete clarity of all of it, right? Which would be our Buddha nature.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
That's and
So
that's just my rough understanding of what how consciousness plays into all of this.
yeah. Well, and I can see how ways that one could become over-identified and believing that like, okay, there's the self, is that like, this kind of like just what you were saying is like, well, what carries on? Like what is it that goes into a next life? And how did I get here?
Right,
How did this, like, what is all this? And so then it's kind of like identifying with
right.
that thread and thinking, okay, well, there's got to be something there that is
That's
me,
the
that there's
self.
the
That's the self.
continuity. Yeah,
So
that's the
that's okay.
self.
So within this is the distinction between the Advaita Vedanta non-dualists, right, and a Buddhist non-dualist. So they like all the tradition. It's all like basically the same. Like can't find me, can't find me, can't find me here, can't no, not there. Okay, and then when you get down to it, and like you're like discovered that you're not anywhere. It's like the Vedantists are like, and that's you.
Ah.
And Buddha's like, no, not there. Not there either.
Yeah, yeah. Awesome.
Awesome.
Hey, this has been really informative.
Isn't this fun? I love
It's
talking
so
about this stuff.
fun. Yeah, and I'm really gonna take with me tonight that Thich Nhat Hanh description or his kind of reminder of like, hey, this is your kingdom.
Come back to your kingdom. Don't look outside of it for anything.
Yeah. I'm
Yeah.
gonna imagine like what's within my kingdom. And it's not me, it's not the self, but yeah, what would be there?
Right.
Ah, cool.
The kingdom is there, but no one's home.
Yeah, great. Daniel, thanks so much. This has been really fun. For folks listening, really appreciate you. I hope you can come back next week. And if you can make a donation, lionsroaddharmacenter.org, anything helps. Yeah, take care, everybody. See you next
Bye-bye.
week.
See you next week.
Bye.